this morning to share Susan with you all. Most of you already know her and are subscribed to her Open Heart Project newsletter and have received meditation instruction and teachings from her before, so you know that she's very special to me. As I said in the email from last week, Susan has truly been, there's tears stinging in the back of my eyes, just a real profound source of support and inspiration for me, both as a practitioner of meditation, like when I'm kind of losing my inspiration for practice or struggling in my practice in any way, she's the one I turn to for guidance and support. Sometimes she doesn't even know that. Because she's just, out there in the world.
I'm out there.
She's done what I'm learning is so hard to do, which is to allow yourself to be completely vulnerable and open and sharing yourself with the world. And you've done that beautifully. And she's also been a really huge support and inspiration for me teaching. And so thank you for all of that, for 15 plus years of friendship and support. And thank you for being here. This is an awesome group of people. There was a woman who came last week for the first time, and remind me your name. Erin. And after about 10 minutes of being in the room, Erin was like, I like the way this feels. Right? Awesome. That was you, Erin, right? Yeah. You were over there.
Yes.
This is such a good group, amazing community of people who just keep coming back over and over and over again to support each other in practice. And as much as I love and respect and appreciate Susan for the support that she's offered me, you all are the ones who really make me keep going and keep showing up and keep deepening in practice and community. So thank you all. We're going to talk about compassion today. Susan emailed me yesterday and said, do you think this is too much, this idea that I have for where we might go today? And I said, there's no such thing as too much with this group. We're in it. We all, I think, share the aspiration to live with open hearts. And we've learned that living with an open heart in this world is sometimes challenging because the world is suffering. There's a lot of suffering in the world. And the essence of the teachings on compassion are about learning how to keep our hearts open in the face of suffering and to meet it in a way that allows relief or an alleviation of whatever kind of pain or suffering we feel as human beings. So thanks for teaching.
You're welcome. Thank you for that beautiful introduction, and ditto. You have been a great friend and inspiration to me, and I would say, as I see you navigate the challenges of being on the path that has mostly been prescribed by a patriarchy, finding a way to bring your view as a woman and your power as a teacher in a way that is different than the last 2,500 years of Buddhism. So thank you for that. And we all benefit from it. I'm in a very teary place myself this morning, so I think that's a great place to start in the conversation about compassion. So just jump in? Okay. So I find in myself and in others, when we think about compassion, the very next word that arises is should. I should be compassionate. We bring a moralistic view to this very profound state that transcends the boundaries of morals and moralism. I should be compassionate. Irrelevant. I can't be compassionate because you're an asshole. Irrelevant. I am a human being who gets angry and hurt, and I don't want to be compassionate because you don't deserve it. Irrelevant. So we often start with compassion with a judgment scale. You deserve it. You don't. Uh-oh, I've screwed something up. And so let me force myself to be nice. Irrelevant. I had a dream last night. I'm a cat lover. And I suffer with the cats of the world. And it actually keeps me up at night, in part because I now have a house here in Austin because I love it so much. I'm trying to, one stick of furniture at a time, pulling my whole life here. There are a lot of feral cats in the backyard, stray cats. Yes, you know exactly what I mean. And it kills me. And I see the kittens, and some of the cats have little clipped ears because people have been kind enough to bring them in to get them spayed or neutered and then put them back in the yard. It's unsurprising that there are more and more cats in the backyard since somebody in the house is putting out cat food. And I have this plan on Friday. I couldn't do it. I needed moral support. A friend of mine is going to come over on Friday, and we're going to trap 2 cats that haven't been fixed and then bring them to a place that fixes cats on the spot, because we can't bring cats in 3 times as most veterinary clinics. So I'm all about this cat situation, and I have cats too, and I love them. So anyway, last night I had a dream that I saw a kitten in the backyard, so somewhere, and I saw a rabbit, a big rabbit. I don't know, rabbits aren't predators, but I saw a giant rabbit standing behind the kitten, and it grabbed the kitten, bit the kitten in the neck, and started shaking it. And I ran out and just picked up the rabbit and shook the kitten loose. And the kitten sort of flew a few feet, and the rabbit hopped away. And I didn't know if the kitten was dead or alive, but I picked the kitten up. You know, there's no choice. I picked the kitten up. The kitten was alive. I held the kitten to my chest, and I got back in bed and held the kitten here under the covers with me, and felt my heart mix with the life and death of this tiny creature. And then I was so heartbroken, I woke myself up. I think the kitten lived. But I felt somehow my heart essence mix with the living and dying. And somehow that is a pith instruction in compassion. Now, who wants to do that? You know, nobody. How does that work? Well, immediately we can see it's beyond the judgment. There was something in this dream, which was just a dream, where there was choiceless. It was choiceless. It was choiceless to shake the kitten loose. It was choiceless to pick the kitten up. It was choiceless to mix my heart essence. In the dream, would I do that in everyday life? I have no idea. And luckily it was a cute kitten as opposed to, you know, Donald Trump. But we'll start with something simple, a little kitten. So we can see it's past judgment. There's something reflexive about compassion, and we can count on that. So if you think I should be compassionate or I'm not, but I probably ought to be, don't worry about it. As Kelly has taught you, it is one of the 4 immeasurables. You can't run out of it. You can't screw it up. So I wanted to read to you something that I was reading this morning that is a counterpoint to the moralistic view of compassion, I think. It's from an Indian teacher of more than 1,000 years ago named Kamala Shila. Kamala Shila and Shantarakshita were 2 Indian sages that brought Buddhism to Tibet. And then they were like, we need to bring in the big guns, so they brought in Padmasambhava. But anyway, Kamala Shila says, moved by compassion, karuna, as you know, Bodhisattvas take the vow to liberate all sentient beings. Then, by overcoming their self-centered outlook, which is where we fall down in the West, because we think, oh, it shouldn't be about me, but actually it has to be about you. So we'll talk about that in a second. By overcoming their self-centered outlook, which doesn't mean what we think it does, they engage eagerly and continuously in the very difficult practices of accumulating merit and insight. Having entered into this practice of compassion, they will certainly complete the collection of merit and insight. Accomplishing the accumulation of merit and insight is like having omniscience in the palm of your hand. Therefore, since compassion is the only root of omniscience, you should become familiar with this practice from the very beginning. So, as you know, Kelly's work is called Quiet Mind, Open Heart. My online community, by coincidence / not coincidence, is called the Open Heart Project. So that is where compassion comes from, and the omniscience comes from compassion. And there's something about letting go of self that opens the floodgate. But letting go of self doesn't mean diminishing self or making yourself come second. It means something else. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know what it means? I mean, do you have a sense of what does it mean to let go of self, but not self-diminish?
Well, interestingly, the dream that you had was a reality for me. Like, exactly, except the rabbit was a dog, and the cat was mine.
Wow. Whoa.
And I will tell you that when it's your reality, you don't exist. You don't think, what should I do? You just do.
Point.
And I held that kitten to my chest while it died. It was my daughter's 6th birthday kitten.
Oh.
I mean, heart-wrenching. And there is that, like, you just don't think. So the self in those moments where compassion is truly required, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to say, I should be compassionate or I must act with compassion. Compassion just happens.
Wow.
And there's no me there to be compassionate. It's just, compassion just is. So, yeah, I think I know.
That's a great, and I'm sorry.
Thanks. It was really awful.
Sucks. So bad.
Yeah.
But your definition of no self is perfect. It's you don't think. So that it's not about I should, like you say, and it's not about if I think about myself, I'm selfish. That's not true. So there's a whole moralistic piece, I'll just say again, that we can put down and trust ourselves. In everyday life, of course, there are continual obstacles to compassion. So let's look at some of those obstacles. But first, what do you think? Do you have any questions or reflections or anything you want to add or share or ask right now?
One other thing that I wanted to say is you talked about omniscience.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a quality that was described in the passage that you read. And that might be a new word for some of us, or kind of we know it outside of the context of Buddhism. In Buddhism, a Buddha, somebody who's fully awake, is said to be omniscient. And the best description that I've heard for what omniscience is or what it means is the ability to know what to do in any given moment, like how to respond or relate to a situation. And we can think of it as like this big thing that we will experience when we are enlightened.
Mm-hmm.
But in that description of my response to the cat, like there was no question of what should I do. There was just doing. There was just this instinctual, intuitive response. And so this quality of omniscience is something that, just like compassion, we all have access to already.
Thank you. Yeah, It's not about being clairvoyant, although it's not about being clairvoyant either, because you know what to do, just as Kelly says. I once asked a teacher, why am I crying all the time? And the more I practice and the more I try to practice compassion, I just cry all the time. What am I doing wrong? Was sort of my question. And because I'm thinking, well, I don't think the Dalai Lama's running to his room, throwing himself on his bed, crying all day, but the Dalai Lama is said to be the emanation of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. So he is compassion, but he seems to be in a pretty good mood almost all the time. So what am I doing wrong? How come I'm not the Dalai Lama? And this teacher said, some of the world's greatest meditators have cried a lot. And that was very helpful to me, because it said this crying is somehow part of the journey. And yes, the great teachers do cry. They're not immune. But somehow they found a way to take this open-heartedness or broken-heartedness and not do what I do, which is close and open, close and open, close and open, depending on circumstance, but to stabilize in the open state. So I think they're walking around heartbroken all the time, but within that somehow have found stability. So how do you do that? Well, our meditation practice is exactly how. Because you sit with everything, and you're practicing sitting with everything. So that when you go out in the world, and it doesn't matter if you're good at meditating, by the way, it does not matter at all. What's good is, can you do that out there? So one of the best definitions I ever heard of compassion is the willingness to hold love and pain in your heart together. And that is what compassion feels like, to me. Love and pain, inseparable. So it's very ordinary and natural, understandable to want to block pain. So I wanted to, or do the converse, which is fling yourself onto the fire of pain. And that's also not a good idea. So we need to walk into it with a sense of coolness. And how do you walk into fire with a sense of coolness? So we have to feel. Be willing to feel anything. That's a tall order. What I described in my dream and what Kelly experienced in real life, that's hard, even though it is reflexive. But anyone who has the willingness to do that is a warrior. And that's what's really hard to do in this world. So whenever I hear people talk about what is courage and how do you what are the hard things that you have to do as a human being, accomplish things and make yourself really strong, that's bullshit. This is what's really hard. And this is what's really fierce. And anyone who calls compassion, I'm ranting a little bit right now, wanting to be loving and compassionate, soft, doesn't know what they're talking about. Because this is really, really where the rubber meets the road. In the Buddhist view, there are sort of three ways of looking at emotion, which are, in my view, the conduit for compassion. I'm just keep being aware of the time. We want to sit for 30 minutes, right? Okay. I'll just say this briefly, and then we'll sit and we can have conversation. As you may know, the Buddhist canon is divided into 3 cycles of teachings. The first cycle, the Hinayana teachings, the foundational vehicle. There's a particular view of emotion. Like, where do you start? Well, in the Hinayana view, emotions are seen as afflictive. And they really can be. And compassion is a way to purify afflictive emotions. So in the Hinayana view and in some schools of Buddhism, the focus is on not feeling angry, not feeling shattered. Because, yeah, those are distractions. But that's only one way of looking at feelings. So when people say, you know, you shouldn't be so attached, or why are you getting so emotional, they may be thinking that that's the only view of emotions, or they also may be just scared. But that's, like I say, only one way of viewing emotions. From the foundational teachings arise the heart teachings of the Mahayana, the teachings that are about working with the opening of the heart and really practicing the four immeasurables completely. And here emotions are not seen as afflictive, they're seen as a bridge between you and others. So that, for example, when you feel enraged, it's not fun and somehow you work with it, but you can also know, or even when you're depressed, not fun, but you work with it, and you can also know that when I meet someone in the future who feels this, I will have so much compassion because I know how hard it is. I know what it feels like. So every difficult, painful thing you feel is also like a notch in the compassion bedpost, so to speak. It's a way, it's a giving you additional instruction, additional insight into how to open to others. And the third cycle, the Vajrayana, V-A-J-R-A, the indestructible vehicle, is about working with anything that arises on the spot as a potential moment of complete liberation from suffering. So it's the fast path. The path to enlightenment in the Hinayana is said to take many lifetimes because a lot of purification is required. In the Mahayana, the path to enlightenment is you should attempt to become enlightened now so that you can be of benefit to others, but you will not transcend the cycle of birth and death until all beings are enlightened. So it's quite a vow, big vow, impossible vow, yet one takes it. And in the Vajrayana, the path to enlightenment is seen as immediate. It could happen right now. There's, I think, 108,000 moments to wake up, and 108,000 opportunities to wake up in every moment. So, oh, I just missed 108,000. Oh, but here comes another 108,000. So, if in the Hinayana emotions are afflictive and an obstacle, which they are, and in the Mahayana, if emotions are a bridge, which they are, in the Vajrayana, the emotion itself is a source of wisdom. So anger is wisdom. Grief is wisdom. But the wisdom is embedded and can be hidden, but is there, inseparable from the so-called afflictive emotion. So compassion in the Hinayana, again, is a way to purify. In the Mahayana, it is the central practice, I would say. And in the Vajrayana, your own, this is my view, I didn't read this anywhere, but your own willingness to experience compassion can wake you up. So it may look like it's something you're doing for others, and it is, but compassion has the capacity to wake you up completely. The more you open to it, the more you open to true wakefulness. Don't take my word for that or anything at all. Please investigate for yourself, because that is the actual teacher, is your own mind. So these are just suggestions. Would you add anything to this? All right now? Okay. The job is to open. And the foundation for opening is called curiosity. So there's a willingness to not know and a willingness to let go of not knowing itself. Because we think we know what not knowing means, but we even let go of that. So quiet mind, open heart project, open-heartedness of you all to each other. It's palpable immediately. We're already in. We're in. And the way we find stability in it is to practice sitting with it. So shall we sit?
I'm wondering if it might be helpful to just take a few
Just
minutes
stretch?
to stretch and
Sure.
move.
Sure.
So if you need to use the restroom or you want to just stand up and we'll take 3 minutes to just allow movement to happen. You can do a couple of yoga postures or put your legs up the wall or lay down and roll around on the floor. It's my favorite way to practice yoga these days.
My favorite way is to go swimming. I have loved swimming and stretching in the water so much. Should I give instruction? This is the cushion I have at home. I love this. Do you sit with eyes open or closed?
I usually give them the option.
Sure. I suggest we try with eyes open because that's useful for compassion. Back to motion. I hope I didn't offend anyone by saying that. You never know. Okay?
And I think it would be okay to maybe it could be okay to sit maybe just until 9.
That's fine. That's what
And give
that's
us more
perfect.
time.
That's great. Okay, let's begin. I'll give light instruction. So begin your practice by taking your posture. Whether you're sitting or lying down, feel a sense of length in the back body. If you're on the ground. Your hands can rest on your legs. And wherever they are, let them be heavy. Give your weight to the floor. We're not trying to get anywhere. We're just trying to be here. Because there is no place else. Let the front body soften a lot. Especially the lower abdomen, let the belly relax. And when you think it's relaxed, relax it some more. And imagine that this sense of spreading in the lower abdomen could continue, even if you're not paying attention to it. Let the shoulders relax. The mouth is closed, but the lips and teeth can be slightly parted. And the reason the mouth is closed in meditation is because you don't have to talk. So please enjoy that luxury. And notice there actually is no one in here talking anyway. It's quiet. The breath is natural, in and out through the nose. And the eyes can be open or closed, but I suggest for this short session, experiment with eyes open, because it's very helpful with our wish to be compassionate to see where we are and who else is here. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. But otherwise, let the eyes be open and the gaze cast down and soft. Feel your body breathing, because that's kind of all that's really happening right now. Feel the in-breath. Feel the release of the out-breath. And then the next in-breath just happens. And you can feel that too. So we're not observing the breath or noticing the breath, we're feeling the breath. It's in the body. So feel your body breathing. You can imagine that your breath is like a hammock, swinging in and out. And we place our mind in the hammock. So let the breath carry you. You can rest the mind on the breath. Your mind will continue to think things. That's what it does. It's no big deal. Most of your thoughts will come and go on their own. You don't have to do anything. It's only should you notice that you become completely absorbed by thought, to the point where you are no longer aware of your breath at all, that you want to intercede with 4 little internal steps. First, see that you're thinking. Then, let go. Doesn't matter what the thought is about. Third, gently come back to the breath. And fourth, take a fresh start. And the amount of fresh starts you are allowed is infinite. So you can just relax. we'll sit together.
dedication song we sing
Okay.
at the end. We can shower Susan with our dedication song. Maybe you've heard it before. You can listen or join us. We sing it 3 times. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. Peace, peace, peace. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. Peace, peace, peace. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you. Would you like me to? Is there anything in particular that you want to offer up for conversation, or?
No.
Okay. So with the time that we have left, any questions for Susan particularly about anything that she shared this morning or about the practice itself are welcome and encouraged. And then I found myself curious to know if y'all would be willing to share moments that you've had of spontaneous compassion or insight, things that just moments where a situation arises and just instinctively you knew what to do or had your heart opened. Anne?
I really don't have specific ones coming to mind right now, but what did just come to mind is how that compassion is so closely linked with bravery. And maybe with that being that open heart despite the world and its circumstances and the pain that it inflicts.
Yeah.
Totally. Agree. And although meditation is presented accurately as a way to manage things, well, to become better, you could say exactly, and as you did, that it's actually the practice of bravery and the path to this kind of fierceness.
I don't have any children of my own yet, but I have a nephew that's 3, and it's been amazing to watch him be born so perfect and free of shame, and just what a reminder it is that that's who we all are and how we should all be treated.
Chuck?
My family's been struggling lately with a number of issues, and my wife and I were sitting at the kitchen table. And somehow I always find the wrong thing to say. And it really upset her, and she said, "You have no compassion, eh?" And I felt flooded with compassion for her.
Why do you think that was?
Why?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's so lovely. That's not how most of us would react. That's not how most of us would react. So it's beautiful.
That's a good point, because what does compassion look like to other people? Because you think you're being compassionate, that's your view,
Mm-hmm.
and the other person doesn't receive it.
Yeah. Have you had experiences of being mistaken? Of your intention being mistaken, or not recognized.
Or turned around towards me. When someone didn't want to feel what I was, maybe I was asking something in an effort to be compassionate,
Uh-huh.
and rather than getting an answer, the questions were reversed towards me.
Oh.
And I wasn't in the same situation as that person.
That's painful.
It was different.
Rita?
So what does compassion look like?
It's just like you said, right? I mean, we think of compassion, our first thought of compassion is soft and kind and open and gentle. But just what you said is that willingness to hold both the pain and the open-heartedness at the same time. And it's this, we don't always mean, compassion is not always this soft, gentle, open, pretty, kind of groove. Is that willingness to be in that space where it's not comfortable, where it's not groovy, rosy, soft, where it's hard to be there, just broken-hearted, just bearing witness to our humanity, which is pretty messy.
It is hard, and it is brave, and somehow compassion has become conflated with being nice, and sometimes it's being nice, but sometimes it's being enraged, but it's being open, just as you say, so that then you get accurate intel from the world, so that you know how to respond. So compassion, as is bravery, and as you describe also, it's another word for awake.
Rita?
I find that as I live, that compassion is not necessarily extemporaneous. It's more based upon the fact that I become more and more open by my practice, by meditation, people and things that I read, what I listen to. It opens me up in a way that this more natural, innate goodness can come out. So it's not just suddenly, oh, it was born that way. It's just that I've allowed it over to time. And it surprises me sometimes where my reaction to something is a compassionate reaction. And it just, I'm going like, oh, was that me that did that? I guess it was. But also along with that compassion comes what you were speaking to, I think. And with Buddhism, compassion is balanced with wisdom. That I look at compassion by itself as like good Al-Anon, somebody enabled or something like that. But when it is done with wisdom and combination, it is a little bit slower perhaps, a little bit more thoughtful, but it turns out to be something that is more reasoned and more substantial and perhaps rational and perhaps more effective too. Now I, of course, coming over here this morning, I was not thinking compassionately. I just several drivers, it was like, what are you doing? I don't cuss anymore, but I give hand gestures like this. So, it's something that is quite alive and well, but increasingly that other part is like, oh, that I can reach out. But it just doesn't come full blown. So.
I was struck today because the part where you said the willingness to feel the pain and the love at the same time really resonated with me, and I felt a lot of pain today in my meditation, and I also felt love, but I also felt a freedom in the truth of that.
Really?
There was a freedom in the truth of accepting the pain and the love together.
That's beautiful.
What I find most difficult is when there is nothing to do. That all we can do is hold that space of compassion in our hearts and do nothing but that. And it's particularly hard when it's with people that we love.
Rosie, I have learned that doing nothing in the way that you're describing it, just holding a space of compassion, isn't doing nothing. It is doing something, and it's something really valuable and meaningful and real that we can do. And interestingly, I find this really interesting. In Buddhism, the teachings on compassion are divided into aspirational compassion and engaged compassion, aspiring bodhicitta and entering bodhicitta. And the meditation practices that are compassion practices like Tonglen, they are not in the category of aspiring bodhicitta. They're in the category of action. They are considered something very powerful that we can do. And that's just, I share that just because that's a really important shift that I've made in myself, because that feeling of hopelessness and there's nothing I can do is so devastating. To shift into this view of taking my seat and holding a compassionate space and doing these compassion practices, or even just sitting and feeling and bearing witness, is doing something. And it's doing something that matters and it's meaningful and is actually making a difference, even if we can't see it in the same way that we might if we were to go into a situation and do something. So, it's hard.
It is.
Yeah, it's hard. Dana.
I couldn't think of an example of something like of an instinctive place where I express compassion. Not that I don't, but I just couldn't think of that when you asked the question. But I remember my father passed about a year ago, and the letters that we received from people all over had some of the most beautiful things about places of compassion. I either was there with him or I wasn't. But one that really struck me was at a party, and it was a black tie event, and a kid fell into the pool, and my father dove in a tuxedo and saved him.
Wow.
And it was a little boy who was now an adult that was writing like a card to us about my father, and I felt compassion. I felt my father's compassion through the card. And years later, I felt full and it felt good.
Wow. It's amazing. You felt your father's compassion through the card. That is so piercing. The through line of compassion. So can I just say one more thing? I once had the chance to interview Tara Brock, who's a great Vipassana teacher. I don't even remember why, but it was awesome. And I said to her, what do you tell your students who experience compassion fatigue? Because it's crazy out there, y'all. And I thought she was going to say, practice Tonglen or do something. Without hesitation, she said, Sangha. I tell them Sangha, community, reconnect with others. So when you experience compassion fatigue, as we all do or will, what you've created is the counterbalance.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being the community that we can come home to every Wednesday. Last thing I'll say, and then we'll close. Last week I shared with you that my husband Adam and I had kind of some difficult conversations around money that left me, that were really, I was sitting with them on last Wednesday morning, and actually wrote to Susan after class and remembered that she wrote this amazing book that had found its way onto my bookshelf, because I've now read it twice and it just kind of keeps going back. I'm like, oh, maybe I should go get that back off the bookshelf and put it back on my bedside, because it's not like we receive the teachings once and then we get it and then we're done, right? Life keeps giving us opportunities, and I remember that this book, The Four Noble Truths of Love, which is Susan's last book, she talks about how relationships are inherently unstable. They are challenging. It doesn't mean that there's anything, that that's wrong, that the relationship's wrong. It's just what's true. And that meeting that instability together is love. And I'm like, oh, wow. So it's back on my bedside table. And I just wanted to say thank you, and I wanted to mention it in case any of you haven't read it. It's a book about how to be in relationship in a loving and compassionate way. And relationship with a significant other, yes, but really just relationship in general. And I love it.
Thank you.
And I'm so grateful that you share yourself with us in all of these ways. So thank you for that. Have a great week. Next week, I have some ideas for what we're going to do. I'm just going to plant a quick seed. I have this hypothesis brewing about compassion fatigue, and that it's not actually compassion fatigue, but that it's empathy fatigue. It's an unfinished thought.
Interesting.
But that I would like to have a conversation around, and that compassion is actually the antidote. And now I love this, that community is also an antidote, but that the way that compassion is described and taught in Buddhism, like, because it doesn't, we can't run out of it.
Right.
We can't exhaust ourselves by practicing compassion. We can, I mean, what's described as compassion fatigue for sure is a real thing. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I'm just wondering if the ways that we talk about it and understand it might help us to reveal other ways that we meet that experience of feeling worn out by life.
It's really
That
interesting.
how we meet it could make all the difference. So I'm just going to plant that seed there for next week. Have a wonderful week of practice. I will email you. I'll also include a link to Susan's Open Heart Project in case you are not already a member. It's free. It's an awesome newsletter. There is an infinite well of resources that she shares. And I encourage you all to sign up.
So nice to see you.